Hello? Okay. Good evening. Hi, my name is Sujin. I represent the Korean Film Council, aka KOFIC, in the United States. And welcome to our first entertainment forum in association with C3. So let me a little bit introduce about KOFIC, Korean Film Council. We promote Korean films and Korean film industry. So to do that, one of our important things is to support independent filmmaking and also diversity film in South Korea. And that's why I think this topic is really relevant in everywhere, especially in LA. And that's why we chose this topic. And I think this is really like informative of all of us, and including people in Korea. So that's why we are doing the live streaming through Facebook page. So this event is our long-time collaboration partner, like Korean Cultural Center, and this is where we are at now. So I'm so happy that we have Mr. Nakjun Kim, who is here. He's a director of Korean Cultural Center, and like you see, they have a free Korean film screening every month, and then we do a lot of like special Korean film screening and events. So you should always check out Korean Cultural Center, and then us, like Korean Film Council, to get to know more about what we do and what we try to achieve in LA and in the United States. So let me introduce Milton from C3 from now and then. Thanks for coming. I just want to because you don't know who is Mr. Kim. So he's over there, and then he's one of the avid supporter for the. Yeah, to me, one tip is I think it is important to know people like Mr. Kim, because we have to understand not just industry-wise how government works, because a lot of times producing is also understanding how we're gonna really put together elements from each different section. So thank you again.
Thank you, Sujin. I was gonna make a joke about how I got fluent in Korean overnight, but it's horrible now that I think about it. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I'm Milton Liu. I am the Director of Programs and Artist Services at Visual Communications, which we run the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival. It's our 33rd film festival this year, and we're really proud of it. And this is our 7th C3. And C3 came about because we understood that, traditional media and the entertainment landscape is ever constantly changing. So we wanted to bring everything together so that with the filmmakers involved, but also see what else is out there in the stratosphere. So I don't want to take any more time, but I do want to thank the Korean Film Council and the Korean Cultural Center for letting us have this panel. And please stay after. There'll be a reception, and there'll be some refreshments. So anyway, I'd like to just introduce the moderator of this panel, Mr. Philip Chung, who is the creative content director for You Offend Me, You Offend My Family, also known as YOMYOMF.
Let's bring the panelists up. Thank you everybody for coming, and once again, thanks to KOFIC, to the Korean Cultural Center, and to Visual Communications for hosting us in their space. Today we're here to talk about opportunities for filmmakers, specifically emerging independent filmmakers, which I'm assuming are some of you in the audience, in the digital space. And we're very lucky to have this panel, which is very hard to get people of this caliber here all in one place, and lucky to get all of my first choices. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down the line, but Gary King from Machinima, Owen Shiflett, who does both Sundance Now and Shudder, the sister channel. Katrina, whenever I say your name, I have a thing to do a Russian accent, so sorry about that. Katrina Frolov from Comcast Watchable. And then Nathan Kitada, last but not least, from YouTube Red. So what I'm going to do first is just have each person introduce themselves and talk about their company, their background, and kind of what they do. And if you guys can also mention like kind of a signature kind of project of yours to kind of give a sense of the type of content. And then Gary at Machinima is now a part of the Warner Brothers digital family. They were recently acquired, and you can talk about that as well. So why don't we start with you, Gary, and just go down the line. Oh, there's mics. There should be mics next to you guys that you can turn on.
Hello, hello.
There you go.
Gary King. Long story short, I've worked both as a producer and a network exec. I've done features, I've done TV, I've done digital, so I've seen it from all different landscapes. Before Machinima, most recently I was at Disney Channel and Disney XD, where I oversaw original scripted digital content and alternative programming for both channels. I worked with Phil over there on a short film project that we were doing. It was Disney Channel's first attempt at original scripted digital. We did a short film together called Parker and the Crew. Performed really well on YouTube, which Disney had never done any original digital on YouTube before, so it was a great launch pad for us and introduced us to a lot of up-and-coming filmmakers and got a lot of great people in the Disney pipeline. And now I'm over at Machinima, where I'm doing both scripted and unscripted still for digital, and we get to cross borders to linear when we have a project that fits the mold. And my big project over at Machinima right now is I'm overseeing a reboot of Knight Rider with YOMYOMF and NBC Universal.
Owen?
Hey, Owen Shiflett. In 2006, I joined AMC Network when it was nothing. It was just channel 447 on your basic cable dial, and saw it grow mostly through original programming. I had the distinction of being the youngest member of that development team in 2009 when we started web series, so I kind of got handed that assignment too. Back when web series were called web series, and now in 2014 I left to go be a producer over at Parks McDonald, where I had we had a lot of fun, did a lot of really interesting stuff, and then last June I came over back to AMC Networks to run development for both Shudder, which is an all-genre OTT, and Sundance Now, which is kind of film festival flavored OTT.
And talking about like kind of a representative project, you had recently there was an announcement about the Chances, and I think that's a great example, and if you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So Sundance Now recently announced its first scripted series. It's called The Chances. It features two writer performers who are hearing impaired, which was the first time any scripted series will have a lead in as a hearing impaired person since Marley Matlin in 1991, Presumed Innocent. Oh, that's not the name. That's something else. But anyway, and so it's really exciting. We bought that after we saw it at a showcase, a short form showcase at Sundance this year. So there's a lot of crazy places that you find shows these days.
Katrina.
Yes, Katrina Frolov. I'm a producer by trade. I started producing in linear television, doing mostly unscripted shows, so directing talent, writing story sheets, just being in the field and having my hands in creative, and then eventually I wanted to know how the business works and all the different opportunities that are coming out of the digital space. I was always very curious about that. And I was brought on by Philip Debevoise to run development for his new network, Citizen Networks, which is a travel vertical. And I was there for a little while overseeing development and production. And I was introduced to Watchable about almost 2 years ago now. And in the Watchable role, I manage development and current series production. Watchable is a ad-supported free platform that's available to everyone in the United States through desktop, mobile web, and apps. And then because we're part of the Comcast family, if you are in the Comcast footprint, we're also built into the X1 set-top box, which I won't talk about the set-top box here. When we first launched, Watchable was very much a content aggregator, and most of the shows that you saw on Watchable, you'd be able to get everywhere else. So we had partners like Machinima and Tastemade and Vice and BuzzFeed, which was great for us, and we love working with our partners. But from the very beginning, we knew that we wanted to build a brand, and the way for us to do that was through original and exclusive programming. So we started taking pitches early last year. We released our first slate last summer, which was really exciting. And I think today we released something like 10 or 11 shows, and we're continuing to develop, continuing to produce. We're in production on a couple of things now, and we'll be releasing more series later this year, which is really exciting. One of the projects that we're really excited this year, we did a series last year with Logan Paul called Logan Paul Versus, and we are currently in production on a second season. So that's a really exciting project for us, and we love Logan. He's a social media powerhouse, which always helps. But yeah, that's...
All right, Nathan, YouTube Red.
My name is Nathan Kitada. My background is actually as a filmmaker. I went to film school. I went to AFI, and after graduating, did a little bit of production here and there, made some videos. I did this video that went viral, got picked up. It was like a fake trailer for like a Super Mario Brothers movie that we shot using Grand Theft Auto as the animation engine. We skinned a bunch of assets and passed around, and that somehow, and some other stuff, and then somehow qualified me to start to work for a company that was nascent at the time, which was Maker Studios. So I started to work with a super small Maker Studios running on programming on their gaming hub, and then helping to build a brand new entertainment business. As the company grew from a group of 20-something underemployed kids to this multi-channel network that eventually sold to Disney. So I saw growth of that company. I was recruited by YouTube a couple years ago and joined their Creator Lab, which is a group that pursues sort of radical content research and development in areas of growth of the platform. So doing research experiments with people who are experimenting with VR or doing kids content with the Kids app. So I sort of kind of keep YouTube in that business unit. But over the course of my employment, YouTube Red became a real focus of the company. And me and a couple of folks from my business unit were moved up to the originals group, where I became a development executive on the scripting side for YouTube Red. YouTube Red is YouTube's paid subscription service. You pay $9.99 a month. You get the ability to watch YouTube offline, the ability to watch YouTube ads free, this YouTube Music app, and the originals, all kind of like wrapped into a suite of services. So we're making a number of original, both scripted and unscripted shows. Shows that I really enjoy. We had a great show that we did with Awesomeness and a YouTube vlogger named Gen X Pen called Foursome, which is sort of like a raunchy high school with Sex and the City. I think it's a great example of some of our content. We also did a show called 7 by 30 with Long Food, which was a sort of romantic dramedy. I guess the project that I'm most excited about is a project that wrapped on Friday. We're production wrapped on Friday. That kind of gets me back to my gaming roots. We're doing a show about the world of esports. Dan Harmon and the Game Grumps, who are a major YouTube Let's Play video game channel. So together we're doing this sort of bad news bears of competitive video gaming. So that's where I'm from.
Nathan, you should be most excited about your reboot of Step Up, actually. But, you know.
Well, I'm not on that show, but
Still.
that is something that's coming down the pipe. We're also doing a reboot of the Step Up franchise as a scripted episodic show. So dance, music, romance, everything you want. So probably do it.
So for most of this panel, I'm going to let our illustrious guests talk, and hopefully you guys will have questions. I really want this to be a dialogue. But let me start by kind of talking a little bit about the overall kind of digital landscape now and kind of give context to what we're going to hear about. First of all, I want to just make sure, like, do you guys know what terms like OTT and AVOD and things like that are? Okay, so let me just do a quick rundown of probably some of the terms that are going to come up that have already come up. OTT stands for over the top, and in a nutshell, it's just basically a platform online, you know. So all of these in some form is an over the top platform. So if you hear that, that's what OTT is. SVOD, so VOD is video on demand. So that's where you go online or to whatever platform you have, and you get to watch content. SVOD is subscription video on demand, and those are things like Netflix where you actually pay usually a monthly subscription rate and then you get the content. AVOD is ad-supported, where basically you don't have to pay, but you get ads in your content, which is, Watchable is AVOD. YouTube is obviously SVOD, except the free stuff is separate from the AVOD, right? And then you have TVOD, which is transitional video on demand, and that's when you pay for, in essence, like one, you know, like I want to download this one thing from iTunes and watch this one movie. So those are kind of the basic terms you'll hear. And if there's other terms that come up that you don't know, feel free to just go like, I don't know what you're talking about, and we'll be happy to clarify all that. And then I also want to kind of define how we're going to be defining digital for this. There are companies like Netflix and Amazon that are technically digital, you know, platforms as well, but I'm kind of excluding them from this discussion only because they might as well be TV. I mean, the kind of level up there, I mean, Netflix basically, their budgets are actually more than TV. And the way that you sell shows and the packaging and the barriers to entry are pretty much similar to it. So I'm focusing more on kind of what I call, you know, don't get upset at this term, but since we talked about making up terms anyways, so what I call the middle class, right? Like these are the platforms where you will get decent budgets to make stuff, where they are, but they're also open to emerging talent, you know, to filmmakers like I'm assuming many of you are out there. So I thought that would be kind of most helpful for this discussion to really kind of talk to people who are looking for original content and who are open to that. With that said, one final thing I want to do is I also want to give like a brief overview of kind of the landscape now, not talking about the companies that are here because they can talk about that themselves. And one of the things I really want to emphasize is how quickly this space changes. And I know with Nathan and Gary, you can talk about that because your companies are going through some changes right now, right? And I really want to emphasize that. And I'm going to give one example of that. There's a platform that was announced last fall from Verizon and Awesomeness. I don't think they even had a name for it yet, so they just called it Made for Mobile, right? So Sami Kim Falvey, who was the head of comedy over at ABC, and we actually had a project with her over at ABC Digital at the time. She left there to go to Verizon and Awesomeness to start this new platform. And basically, they were putting a lot of money into it. I don't know if we could talk about budgets. Did they ever announce the budgets for those publicly? Well, they were doing 10-minute episodes. It was so episodic, but it was a shitload of money. I mean, it was a lot of money that they were putting into, and so everyone was really excited about this. So two things happened with that. So once she went over, kind of the ABC Digital thing kind of died in the form that it existed. So projects like ours that, I mean, I really thought what they were doing was great, really giving opportunities for, you know, people to come with passion projects and kind of do a project for their digital that also served as backdoor pilots, right? So that kind of died when she went away. And then what ended up happening with Made for Mobile is they were supposed to launch this year, and then in February, they announced that they were just shutting down before they launched at all. And there were a number of issues related to that. One of them being DreamWorks' acquisition of being acquired by Comcast? No, who bought DreamWorks? NBC Universal, so Comcast, right? And that kind of changed things, and there was some shuffling of, so that kind of shows you how things change in this space. So that's just something to be aware of, and that's just kind of my way of saying that everything that we talk about here tonight could be completely different by tomorrow, so don't be surprised if that's the case. Now, what's exciting about this is I've done a similar panel, a digital panel for the past few years here at C3 for the film festival, and you can really see kind of how things have changed. And this is the first year where I really had so many people that I can ask to be on this panel because there's so many opportunities now. And again, things can change in a heartbeat here. So I want to just kind of give you an overview of some of the other kind of buyers out there to give it some of the context. So we have Verizon Go 90 as an example, which is obviously Verizon, and they've been around for a little over a year, but they're completely kind of revamping what they're doing now as well. So they have specific verticals that they're focusing on that deal with specific topics. So they have Nerdgasm, which is kind of the geeky stuff. They have Entertain Me, which is kind of the young kind of stuff. They have a vertical called Damn It, which is kind of news and current events and comedy. Basic, which is for like young adults. You have Vimeo getting into the original content space now, mostly short form, drama, comedy, documentary, action. You have Spotify, which is creating content around music, obviously. You have Snapchat, which is getting into more scripted now, short form. CISO, which is a part of the NBC Universal family, which is doing comedy. Gunpowder and Sky, which is Peter Turnan's Otter Media, kind of doing, which is a digital studio, but they're also doing film and TV as well. And I believe at Sundance this year, and they've only been around for less than a year, they were, I think, the third biggest digital buyer after Amazon and Netflix. So it was pretty amazing how quickly they're growing. Facebook is launching their AVOD this summer and doing original content. They're starting with both scripted and unscripted series, but I think they're doing acquisitions for movies, is what I've been told. So they're not producing movies, but I think they're going to acquire some for their platform. You have Sony Crackle, which has been around for a while, doing both series and movies, and I believe this year they're upping their movie content from producing 2 movies in the past to 8 movies this year. So they're really ratcheting up that. Comic-Con has their own channel now, which is Comic-Con related geek content. Complex and Rated Red. Complex is kind of more urban kind of content. Rated Red is more red state content, is the way to describe it. Awesomeness, and then Black Pills out of France. And those are just some of the examples of, the content buyers out there now. So there's a lot. I mean, this is just a very small, and we're obviously working with others that are kind of getting into space. Like we have a project with IMDb, for example, that we're doing. It's going to be their first, whoops, sorry, I spilled some water. That's going to be their first, attempt at original content. So everyone's kind of getting into the space. So it's definitely an exciting time for filmmakers and a good time to take advantage of that. So that's enough of me. Let's turn to the panelists. So Gary, why don't we start with you? Let's talk a little bit about kind of what specifically you're looking for at Machinima. And also if you could talk a little bit broader about kind of the Warner Brothers digital, because it also includes Blue Ribbon, which is their digital studio. It includes Stage 13, which is their new SVOD platform. It's still going to be, right? It's going to be something. You could talk about that. And then they also recently acquired Drama Fever. So why don't you talk broadly about that, but also talk specifically about what you're looking for at Machinima and kind of what you're looking for in content from kind of emerging filmmakers or people out there.
Yeah. Machinima is it's a really complex company, and there's a lot of layers to it. Since being folded into Warner Brothers and the Warner Brothers Digital Network recently, it's become even more complex and more layered. Speaking for Machinima generally, the company was born out of gaming and esports culture. So everything we do, everything we want to be, we want to try and speak to that audience that has grown with us and stayed loyal to us over the last 12 years of our existence. And that's sort of broken up more into our YouTube business. So we do still operate the MCN, the multi-channel network. We do still feed a lot of daily content to YouTube, and most of that is sort of built in that bread and butter world of gaming and esports. Branching out from that, I'm more focused on what we consider to be premium content, which is shows that we build in formats that we sell to a YouTube Red or a Comcast Watchable or IFC or Amazon or whoever, wherever, anybody that wants content that that fits the bill for what we consider to be premium. More specifically, I'm focused more on genre stuff, so horror, sci-fi, action are the things that I spend most of my time and energy on. As a company, broadly, comedy will always be a part of our identity. comedy plays very much into video games and video game culture and the troll culture of YouTube and internet gaming. So those are things that are just always going to be built into our DNA in terms of everything we develop, everything we try and make, and everything we try and take to market. What I look for in an emerging filmmaker is a point of view and a voice. I really look for tone. There's only so many stories in the world left to be told. So it's hard to find something that's wholly original. Knowing that, what really grabs my attention is how do you take this familiar story or this familiar trope and add your own spin to it that has caught my eye or caught my ear. That could be anything from dialogue, it could be your look. For me, it's just sort of how are you doing this thing that I've already seen and that I've already know differently than the next man over or the next person over. And that's what really inspires me, and that's what I try and find every day. For Warner Brothers as a digital network, as we move and sort of form our Voltron and become one, all of the companies operate a little bit differently. I think Blue Ribbon focuses more on Warner IP a little bit more than they are on original ideas of this stuff. Not that they don't do original, not that they don't buy original, but their focus is really on building up the library and homegrown IP in a new way for a digital format. Stage 13's done a lot of interesting content over the last year or so. A lot of it more focused or geared towards a minority audience. So I think their voice and their place and their purpose is really important for us. And then everybody else under the digital network umbrella, whether it's LeBron's digital company or Ellen's digital company or TMZ's digital company, they all serve sort of an audience or a niche that when you combine us all together, we really do become pretty universal in terms of serving an audience.
Owen?
Gary, you guys still doing Mortal Kombat? That's a good show, man.
I swear to you, it comes up once a week. We are not currently doing Mortal Kombat, but never say never.
That was one of the coolest web series I can remember. I mean, just the modern quote unquote web series, that was it. Yeah, so that's interesting. And so you guys, I'm sorry, I'm totally asking Gary questions. Gary, you guys also, you make stuff for yourselves, but then you also go and package up stuff and go pitch to other places too, though, right?
Yes, we do both.
Wow. That's a lot of responsibility. How do you know which ones are which?
We have a great division of labor because we also have a talent team that focuses on the talent management portion of our MCN as well. So we have right now a really solid group. There's 4 of us that overrun development for the premium stuff. And in terms of the channel stuff, we have our entire studio. We have a studio about 2 miles from the corporate office in Burbank, where they've got about 60 bodies in there on a good day. 12-hour day, just pounding out content that goes straight to YouTube.
Okay. That's crazy. All right.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot. Yeah, so we operate a lot more similarly to a traditional television network, obviously, because that's who we're owned. We're owned by the AMC Networks family, AMC, IFC, BBC America, Sundance TV, We Women's Entertainment. I'm sure there's some other ones hiding in there I don't know about, but and we are like much more focused on finding series. There is a portion of the team that does acquisitions movies, and we have a strong movie library that speaks to both the identities of Sundance Now and Shudder. Shudder is intent on finding every crazy horror movie you remember seeing as a kid and messed you up and putting it back on the channel. And Sundance Now is finely curated selection of foreign films, thoughtful indies, docs. I think both of them have a strong identity rooted in curators. You know, we're trying to be the non-YouTube movie library where people are recommending movies to you as opposed to algorithms. How novel. We are, on my side, look, I look for things at pretty much every level I could possibly get to. I mean, I would love to have a show that I could share with one of my linear brothers and sisters. But then, like the chances you mentioned, that's going to be fully ours, and I couldn't be more proud of it. I think it's an amazing show. Sundance Now is looking for more independent filmmaker driven things. We use dramedy as a cut through. We use like Girls, Atlanta, Master of None as examples that we throw out. And Shudder is looking for prestigious genre stuff. So
By genre, you mean specifically horror, though, right?
no, actually, I mean, look.
You're expanding already?
Yeah, we're expanding already. No, I mean, I think that I think by making it just horror, we found that it does allow us not to, we're still in a smaller pool than we'd like to be. So I think that we are looking for sci-fi suspense stories and Hitchcockian thrillers and, other things that kind of, get you to that genre space. So, I mean, because I think, but we definitively want to be transcending what your kind of preconceived notions are for horror. We just had our first original premiere at the Overlook Film Festival this last weekend. Rodney Asher, who did, I'm already in the name dropping portion of the panel, that's okay, who did Room 237. He did a short series for us that's based on people's nightmares inspired by pop culture. So the piece that was at Overlook on Friday was a bunch of people talking about their fear of ventriloquist dummies. And Rodney records them recounting their nightmares and then reenacts them in a black box theater. So the show has, it actually recreates nightmares, which is incredibly dumb. I mean, it just leads to more things. 10 years from now, there's going to be another show that recreates the nightmares that we've created. But anyway. That's all. But then as far as like indie, I mean, like we say like indie TV is what we're all about. So like I said, we picked up The Chances that was at Sundance. We're definitively go to cover film festivals and go and watch anyone that has a TV category we're after. So we're looking for people who are thinking about episodic and series as much as they're thinking about getting their feature made.
Katrina.
Well, I think to talk about, if we're going to talk about what Watchable is looking for, it really goes back to what I was saying earlier about brand building. And Watchable is a new platform, it's an emerging platform, and it's not the only one in the space. We have, YouTube Red and Shudder and a number of the other ones that you'd mentioned. So how do you really shape your voice and shape your brand in this very crowded, very talented marketplace? For us, we've done the series that we did last year. A lot of it was leaning on our partners. So the Machinimas of the world, we did a series with BuzzFeed, and we did a series with Studio 71, which is a digital studio. So giving back to our partners and really building on those relationships has been really rewarding for us. But, Gary, you mentioned when you talk about projects that come across your desk, what really resonates with you. And I think, again, tying it back to the brand building component, having something that truly feels unique, that truly feels like it's distinct enough from everything else that you've seen in the marketplace. Again, with all of these platforms, you have so much content coming out in the space. How do you make your mark? How do you get audiences that are already stretched for time to pay attention to what you're building? And I think for us, the number one thing that I, as a programming exec, think of when I look at concepts is this something I've seen before? Is it an original twist on a format? Is it unexpected talent? Is it an emerging talent or a unique voice or a really strong perspective? Is there a certain degree of fair-minded provocation in it? So all of these things are really important as we look at, the hundreds of pitches that come across our desks every morning. It's not necessarily tied to, how many social media followers you have, or do you have an extensive track record producing for linear or digital? All of those things can be addressed, but I think what it really comes down to is the idea, the kernel of the idea. And if it feels like it fits our objectives, we absolutely roll up the sleeves and with the creator and figure it out. There's certainly examples of that in our first year slate. And then I think as far as genre, as an aggregator, Watchable touches on pretty much every genre that you can imagine. There's a couple that we're still experimenting with, but you have your comedy, you have your travel, you have your style, you have your food. So there's already so much content on Watchable. When we think about our exclusives, what we want to do is make sure that we are not alienating any portion of our audience. So, if we're looking at niche genres, then how do we lower the barrier to entry to make it more accessible for the rest of our audience? So an example of that would be, if you're doing a show on gaming, how do you... I personally don't know how many hardcore gamers there are on Watchable. I hope there are many. But that's a big risk to take if you're not aware of, what your audience wants in terms of niches. So for us, can you combine gaming with travel? Can you combine gaming with comedy? And automatically lowers the barrier to entry to audiences who don't necessarily identify themselves as hardcore gamers. So those are really important things. And then we look at anything from unscripted to scripted. We did a lot of, last year we experimented with blends. So we have several shows on our slate that had a blend of unscripted and scripted components. So you would have a scripted sketch followed by an unscripted sketch. We had shows that experimented with scripted and how-tos, so like educational stuff. So what I love about the space, and what I think, why our parent company is so excited about this space, is because you can try anything. And it's really, you're able to push the boundaries of really your own imagination and what companies in the linear space are, starting to do more and more, and we're able to do it much faster, and being able to work with emerging talent on a significant basis. I think that I've been talking for a while.
That's great. Nathan.
What was the question?
Just kind of a little bit about what you're looking for as a company, and also what you're looking for in kind of filmmakers or content that you're.
I think YouTube has this enormous growth of amazing engagement. There's this huge wealth of content producers who are making things in an ecosystem. So we can see, often see what kind of pops and use that as sort of a guiding light to make shows in our subscription ecosystem in the S5. And what that means, it can mean a couple of different things, right? Like it means that often what
And recently, you guys announced your first, I think, Korean project, The Big Bang, who's a K-pop star. You guys are doing a show with him, right?
Yeah, and so it's a group. We're doing a show with the Big Bang Group, which is an unscripted show, sort of them out around a campfire, doing stories, doing music, sort of a show that's specifically for that Korean audience, where we just opened up YouTube. And we're very aware of the fact that YouTube has a global audience. YouTube can be a global subscription platform as well. So we have not only do we have global English shows that go across the board, we also have originals initiatives, original people making shows in the regions into which we're expanding.
So we just talked about what you guys are looking for. Let's talk about access now, which I think is going to be an important question for the audience. So if you're a very talented filmmaker or content creator, but you're not a digital influencer with 1 million social media followers, you don't have a lengthy resume, but you have, talent for an interesting project, like, how do they find you guys? Like, how do you guys find projects? And specifically, if you can give an example of something that you may have found that way, where it was a filmmaker that, wasn't established, that didn't have that kind of resume or whatnot. I think that might be something interesting to talk about. Like, coming back to you, Gary, I guess if we're going down the line, I can shake it up if you want and ask someone else first, but yeah.
I'll go first. With me, I think we're at a point now where it doesn't necessarily matter how many followers you have, how big your social network is. If the work is good and you put it out to the world, people will find it and people will find you, and you can always help that. I mean, we all have Twitter accounts, we all have Facebook. Blast it out. Tell your friends to send it out. Like, one share could be, every share could be that one share that gets you to the person who needs to see your work, who can help you break through. For me, when we were doing the short film showcase last year at Disney Channel, a couple of the filmmakers we found were actually through a smaller film festival called New Filmmakers LA. We were able to get access to that group of filmmakers, and I think we screened about 30 shorts that they had playing in their festival, and a handful of them really stood out. We brought those people in for meetings, and we ended up making movies with 3 of them, I think. We ended up doing shorts with 3 of them, just from New Filmmakers LA. So any film festival, big or small, any share, everything's an avenue for you to get your work seen, so don't hesitate to just put your work out into the world.
Owen.
I feel like I'm the one that's cold emailing people all the time. I mean, I got to be honest. Like, I wish that if you want to send me an email, that'd be great, because that's.
Really, you're putting it out there?
I'm definitely the only person probably who's going to say that here. But I do feel like, I've done a lot of deals that are just based off me sending an email to like info at somebody's website and just being like, yeah, like, let's do this, like, love this. Have you thought about doing this as TV or as a series before? I mean, I still feel like I'm in the, hey, you got to think about this in a different way mode than I am people kind of getting to me. And I would say even, we were talking backstage about, who hears what projects. And I swear, I don't know that I've heard that many projects that you guys hear. I just don't think so, because I don't get that many calls from agents. Maybe I will now. But I do think that there's something really refreshing about, having the immediate interaction. And I'll watch anybody's short film for sure. And I would say that even some of my closest filmmaker friends and relationships have come off of cold emails. So I would say that, like, that's, the internet is there for a reason. So use it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I agree definitely with both of you guys, but to bring something, a different, an additional perspective is networking is the tried and true and one thing that you should never neglect. Going to events like these, going to any type of networking events you can get into, shaking hands, getting to know people, making sure they know who you are, who your work is, because a lot of the time, certainly in my experience, it's through introduction. Hey, I know so-and-so, they're working on something great, will you check it out? And like Owen said, absolutely, of course. You know, doing outreach and finding, you know, scouring the internet for creators is absolutely something that we do on a daily basis. But if you want to stand out, then you know, be proactive and do the legwork. I think for, you know, an example on my side is one of the shows that we picked up last season was through an introduction. It was a small creator who had never done a bigger deal with a distributor, and we met. It was a social introduction. He was introduced to our marketing lead, who then brought it into the programming department, and it is now a show on Watchable. So definitely don't underestimate the power of old school networking.
Yeah, I think I think sometimes people, being YouTube, people sometimes get anxious about the fact that you don't have multi-millions of views on a video or a huge audience. But I think a good short is a good short, a good piece of content is a good content, a good a talent kind of shines through. And I think we're always looking for that. You know, in addition to the shows that we're doing with the beauty pageant world, we're also looking for filmmakers on YouTube, and maybe not necessarily giving them a show right off the bat, but we have these avenues. We did a really great partnership with Sundance that's now in its second year, where we took a dozen people who are a little bit more filmmaker focused on the platform and had them develop a concert with Sundance show films. That's how this great channel, the channel name is Just Between Us. It's these women, Gabby and Allison, who sort of cut their teeth doing BuzzFeed style content, forged it out on their own, doing short film stuff. That's how we met and engaged with them. And now looking at a possible project with Gabby and Allison. So we are looking for those people who have a very specific voice, very specific, authentic perspective. That's very, very exciting to us.
Go, Owen.
Do you guys get a lot of stuff that comes in the door where you're like, yep, that's it, like no development needed, like that's the idea, like don't even worry about it?
I think because we're doing, and this is strange for YouTube, but we're doing a lot of traditional formats, right? We're doing 22s, we're doing hour longs. The reason being that we're sort of trying to create value for our paid subscribers. It's a little bit harder than a 5-hour short to sort of get sort of jump over that paywall. That means that we often are looking at something that's a short form and developing it into the half-hour or into the hour-long. Sometimes though we're going the other way. Like we'll see a script that's submitted from a more traditional pathway. It's an hour long, and you're like, this is real long. Type it up and do a full 30. Average session length on YouTube now is about 30 minutes. That's how long, on average, people are spending time on the platform, which is very different than most years ago. It's just sort of like bite-sized pieces of content. Now people are watching longer videos, so spending more time on the platform. So that 30-minute mark is a sweet spot, and we're sort of developing toward that, whether it's up and down.
Yeah, I mean, I would add, for us, we do see quite a bit of stuff that's in really good shape, and we do still go through our rounds of development, but there's a lot of really great projects out there that we get really excited about. But we also do, we also take a lot of the really shorter stuff and then develop it into something bigger, which is, it's really exciting for us as well.
All right. I want to open it up for questions in a bit, but I have a bunch of questions, but I think we want to open it up. But I do want to do one quick question, and this one's a quick one for all of you, just in terms of just formats, or kind of when you want to see projects. Are you guys looking for things at a pitch stage? Are you looking for scripts and packages? Are you looking for finished things that you could just distribute? So what is it that you guys are looking for specifically at your companies? I'm going to start with you, Gary.
All of the above, but me personally, I love a good pitch. Not to sound selfish, but I like to get my fingerprints on it, play with it a little bit, help flesh the idea out. I get a little bit less excited about things when it comes to me is a completed script or when it's fully packaged up, just because, again, selfishly, I have my own creative visions and, things that I love to see in each project and things that really excite me. So if it's completely packaged, I mean, yes, that's great in some instances when you're trying to go out and sell a show, but in terms of actual creative development, which is what the company pays me for, if it's fully packaged, I don't really get to do a lot of that.
So I love a good spec. So I think that when we're doing stuff, we'll do stuff at 10-minute length, we'll do it at 22-minute length, we'll do it 43-minute length, and the longer it gets, the more it should be. If you're trying to sell a full-length show, I suggest you come in with a spec, because that's going to prove that you got it. Not that we won't buy a pitch, of course, but I'll say that I love a good pitch deck, though. How do you feel about pitch decks?
I love pitch decks.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah. Give me like a good 8-page pitch deck, and we're cool.
Shit, yeah.
Although Chances was it was a short that someone had done.
Yeah, it's a short. So like a place like Super Deluxe, who did that. I mean, they've done an amazing job of building out. They'll actually go and shoot something, and then they'll go shop the thing that they made, which I think is awesome. And that's definitely, that's the type of thing where myself and one other executive are the only people in LA. Everybody else is in New York, where the parent company is. It's really easy to pass along a link and say, watch this, as opposed to a script. Pitch deck can get them to look at a pitch deck, though.
Katrina, pitch deck? No?
Oh, those pitch decks. Yes, definitely. I mean, we look at the full spectrum, right? We look at anything from a log line to a finished product, and it really varies project to project. But I think, whether it's a pitch deck or a script or a paragraph about your show or film, what I'm looking for is that you have a very clear understanding of what the final product is going to be. You have a good understanding of your character development, your plot, the major themes. Have you thought about casting? Have you thought about who's going to direct it? I'm always looking, it doesn't have to be a lengthy presentation, although log lines are challenging. It's hard for me to envision what the show might be if I'm just looking at a log line, which we do see a lot of. But, as long as you come in with a clear vision, even if it's just in a paragraph, I think, we could work with that.
Question. How do you feel about one-pagers?
We're getting specific.
One-pagers are good as well. Again, as long as you have a clear understanding. Are you asking because I'm seeing you tomorrow?
I'm pitching her tomorrow. I've got a bunch of one-pagers, so.
Yes, Gary, one-pagers will be fine. Thank you.
You should say you never look at them, Katrina. Make him do some work tonight.
I know. What if I said I hate one-pagers? What would you do then?
I'd be working all night.
Oh.
What about you, Nathan? What do you guys like to look like?
We're moving so fast and trying to make so many shows right now that we tend toward spec scripts, like things that are a little bit more baked out and packaged. That's often because a lot of what we're doing. YouTube on our side is also doing a little bit of packaging on our side too, like taking a script or maybe a traditional producer and really dig and teaming that with a YouTube creator, doing some packaging on our side, so it helps to have a little bit more material to kind of throw against the wall and sort of have something to talk about more than just a log line if you're speaking with a YouTube creator. That being said, just like I said, there were mostly shows with these YouTube creators with a huge footprint on a scale. That's not the only way that we're getting shows done. We have moved on some pitches and sort of just log lines more, we can get a script on them. But I would say for the most part, we're looking for things that are a little bit more baked. But that's just by virtue of the we're trying to do. There's a lot of shows out there, and we're trying to make a lot more. So we're just trying to stay competitive.
Cool. Okay, so I can ask some more questions, but we have about 15, 20 minutes left, I think. So why don't we open it up, and before we have the reception, right? So why don't we open it up to questions from the audience, and we'll just kind of jump into that. So anyone have any questions you would like to ask our panel? Yes. Yes, you with the cap. Yes. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. You can just shout it out.
I'm from San Diego, and I'm working on a documentary called I'm a Pilot, which is about a guy who's trying to be a pilot. He's from Korea, which is him. And I'm working on making a movie. At the same time, it's an episodic drama as well. And my question is, this is an international project because
You mean projects that have an international component, whether it's Korea or elsewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
And to explain more about him is he's been doing a bunch of physical challenges, such as swimming through in the ocean for like 222 kilometers and ran a marathon across the Amazon and climbed mountain Himalaya and what is it horseback riding in Mongolia 2,500 kilometers. And his next challenge is to become a pilot and do cross country 50 states and then the whole world. So this is for now it's a one-man band which is new. So I would call it it's indie filmmaking, but obviously I need more support and help from you guys. That's why I drove from San Diego to here to
Wow.
So, are you guys willing to meet us after this event?
Well, there's a reception after. That's why we're finishing. But so that's a question of just you networking. So we got that. But did you actually want to ask about the international kind of aspect of? Okay. You guys, anyone want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I'm a huge supporter of international content because my job at times feels like it's more focused domestically. I think my challenge is finding international talent and international stories to play well on domestic platforms. But I'm a big supporter of finding international talent, international stories, and the general diversity that comes along with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. I think, the challenge for us is that Watchable currently is a national product. And while we absolutely want to tell international stories, I would need to know more about the language component of the documentary series that you're producing. Documentary has been near and dear to our hearts. We're looking into doing a documentary series this year. So it's got all the right elements, but I think maybe getting to know more about the project would be beneficial for us because then we can see how that aligns with our priorities.
That's it? Anyone? Wait, so Sujin, how many more questions? 5 minutes? Okay. All right. In the front row.
I can take this. Your first part of the question is specifically around people who have big followings, so your social influencers. And I think, in this last round of exclusive series that we did last year, we saw success with series that absolutely had that component. But we also saw some breakout hits who didn't have that at all. There are no big names behind it, and it's guys who potentially answered a casting ad who showed up one day and made a terrific series that ended up getting word of mouth and was just a hit for us. So both of those parts of the equation work. But I think to answer the second part of your question, which is how do you get your idea out there? And talked a little bit about this earlier, where it's networking and if you're a passionate content creator, then you're making content all the time. Post it online, promote it online, network, get your ideas out there, and eventually will end up in the hands of, the likes of us.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a couple deals with people who have podcasts with 0.0 followers, but I just loved, what they brought to the table, and I thought that they had like a really amazing vision for it, and I think that it's like, there's so many avenues to talk and to like be yourself out there in the quote unquote content world. So I think that that's the most important thing.
Nathan or Gary, you want to add anything to that? Or?
Sometimes that becomes that kind of talent potential becomes harder on ourselves.
Let's do two more questions, Sujin. That's okay. In the back, yes.
So personally, I'm interested in producing as well as thinking you guys are looking about executives. What's your favorite part of the job? What's the toughest part of the job?
My favorite part of the job is going to pitch Katrina and Nathan later this week. No, I mean, for me, it really is just hearing stories that gets me excited. Like I said, there are very few wholly original stories left. So what's the coolest version you can give me of a story I've already heard? Once you've cracked that code, you have my attention and my excitement.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the best part of the job is at the end of the day, you get to be a storyteller, and you get to work with really talented people who have really unique points of view and experiences, which I think for us, is really exciting. We sit behind a desk and get to make it all happen. And I can't think of anything that's the worst part of the job, to be honest. Maybe not making all the shows that you get really excited about, because sometimes pieces just don't come together that way. But yeah.
You know, I really, I love the creative parts of the job, but I also think that we're right now in like a very fascinating time in terms of like content production, right? Like, not only are there all these different outlets where you can watch shows, there's also, you don't even have to go through one of those outlets. You can make a show on YouTube, you can post it and build an audience from there. And I think that this kind of moment right now in terms of business and the different like outlets that you have, that is what's most exciting to me, because I kind of see the way that it's really democratized, the way that people watch what they care about, and people who 20 years ago might not have been able to find an audience because there were so many gatekeepers, there were like only however many channels. Now it's all kind of broken down, and being a part of the way that system is breaking down is very exciting to me.
Did you want to add anything to that, Owen?
I think I think that there's one of my favorite things is actually forming like long-term relationships with people like Phil and other people who are like, you have this great idea, or Gary potentially. It's the first day, but maybe this could happen.
Next week, you'll be the
Okay, good.
I'll send you a one-pager.
Yeah. No, I think it's about like, this business lasts a long time. This is a new thing. So it's like, oh yeah, you want to do that? I want to do that. How fun would it be to do that together? That's like the most fun.
Cool. Okay, let's do one more question. Right there in the front.
I was just wondering, what is the process of pitching to Filmmaking? Is there a link online, proposal format? What would the process be to pitch an idea?
Well, you meet them. I mean, that's really, the networking is really, because I mean, there's still difficulties because it is still a business, and you can't technically just submit unsolicited materials without an agent or whatnot. But that's why events like this are great. Is really, it's a chance to meet people and talk to them. And a couple of things before we finish up that I think that's a good segue into that. Is part of it is you really want to kind of do your research, because there's so many platforms out there, and really kind of see that what you're pitching fits kind of what people are looking for, right? Because obviously, what Gary might be looking on the Machinima end might be very different than what Owen's looking for Sundance now, right? And the travel show that you were talking about, for example, the thing, there's very specific ones that are doing things like that. So like Ovation, which is a cable network, they have a digital vertical that they're starting that's purely travel, right? So like something like that might fit there. So part of what you want to do is really kind of get to know people, get to know kind of what they're doing and what they're looking for. And sometimes it's very, very specific. And just make sure that, because a lot of the companies online, what's the great thing about digital is sometimes it's very niche. So there is something for everybody, right? I would recommend, there's a publication called Video Inc. that you guys can look up online, and basically it's kind of the trades, the equivalent of like Variety and Hollywood Reporter for digital content. So you can kind of get to see what people are doing, what kind of projects are being bought, and I think that's important as well. So we're done, right, Sujin? Okay, so So we're going to have a reception afterwards, and I think everyone's sticking around, so you can feel free to like kind of meet and ask questions and things like that. But again, I want to thank the Korean Film Council and the Korean Cultural Center and Visual Communications for hosting this free event, and that's why it's free, because they're hosting it, and for all of you for coming here. Thank you very much. Oh.